Mr. Javed Noorani, you work as a senior researcher with the organization Integrity Watch Afghanistan. Over the recent years, there has been a lot of discussion about the resource wealth in Afghanistan, reaching up to 3 trillion US dollars. What do you think is the reality about these resources, and how does this impact on the people of Afghanistan?
Right, as a common citizen of my country, I think the news when it came sounded very sweet to hear, because we saw wealth in it, we saw cash in coming from the natural resources, but looking at it as a somebody who understands a bit about the sector and taking technical views into account, and geologists' concerns about this news, I think you can't simply give a deposit value unless you dig deep and see the location of the mine and then analyze the content and the quality of the mineral, uh, and that's when you can actually give it a estimation. So the news was good, but analysis of that news had negative impact, because like me, every other Afghan started expecting a lot, and their expectations shot up, and somehow there is some sort of suspicion about anybody who comes to Afghanistan. They consider those people as people hunting for natural resources of the country.
Why do you think the discussion came up in this particular point of time?
Well, that's a question that I asked myself, and the only answer that I could find was, the fatigue among the international community, that was like paying a lot of money for to our budget and other activities of the state. So they thought it's time, that the country could generate its own internal revenues, and then to sustain itself. But it's not that simple as it's like considered.
Do you think that Afghanistan actually has the institutional capacities and the structures to go that way?
I think if you can start with by saying that when any other country all discovers natural resources, the first step towards developing the sector would be a vision based on which it will a vision founded on the realities of the country, the interests of the country, the needs of the country, and then a step towards building the legal framework where you put your laws in place and policies and regulation, and then the institutions to implement those policies and the laws and all. I think we're in the process of building those, but we're very slow. I think we have to speed up, because if you look at the contracts that are given to private companies, um, they're at a higher pace than the capacities of the state, to regulate those contracts, or implement those contracts, or to regulate the sector. So there's a sort of imbalance in the state institutions, in the way we are giving contracts. In the development of sector. So the one of the parties is weaker than the other one, so it automatically creates some sort of hurdles.
So, let's talk a little bit about these needs and interests of those local community people. I know that you have been traveling a lot in Afghanistan. You have been conducting your research in various different areas in the country. So, what are the interests of the people there?
So when a company moves in and starts, operation around, and then normally mining companies would require a lot of land, in the area where they are operating around the mine. So, or displacement is one of the most automatic thing. You will have to tell communities to keep away from mines, and they'll have to leave their property, especially agricultural and residential, to shift to another place. What do you do in the interim? They're not going to be earning from the new place. If you're going to allocate a new place, they'll have to develop it. They'll have to build their houses, and it will take time, resources, to do that. And it's a state obligation, a government's obligation, to make sure that the citizens are not unnecessarily exposed to threats, and displacement is a source of threat. Takeover of their land, acquisition of land is a threat to people. So we think their interests are very important. Now the legitimacy of the state comes from grassroots, the citizens. Their interests have to be protected by the law, by the constitution promises them, and the law has to protect them. Now, what we have been asking, advocating for is, okay, if a mining company comes, welcome. We don't oppose, investment, but we also see the interest of local communities there. They will have to be provided with jobs, at least some sort of, development projects like school, clinics, better roads, drinking water, probably employment to them in the mining sector, just to increase their stake in the project. The people will have to look at the success of projects as their success. Their choices will be expanded. From a human security angle, if you educate them better, if you provide them better healthcare, if you give them much better connectivity to the urban centers, then you also start this process of exchange with urban centers, and then you bring a very peaceful change in the attitude of people. You urbanize them automatically through this process. And I think this is like a very, very peaceful, smooth process to bring change in the attitude of people, and yet you expand their choices and bring them closer to the state, and somehow you increase their stake in the stability and peace of the country.
Last man, last.
Last kill. Big shot. You.
Last, I recording,
The tech is in.
Oh,
Der
ich dachte
ist
gerade mein
in-
Wurfmesser, als ich habe auch eins geworfen.
Was machst du?
What? Alter.